All right, now let's move from the SEC East to the SEC West. Who is Alabama's biggest threat in the SEC West for the 2022 college football season? Now, I am not saying that Alabama is not going to win the SEC West. I'm going to repeat it one more time. I am not saying that Alabama is not going to win the West. Now, I understand a lot of you Alabama fans are going to comment underneath the video and you're going to say, man, JT, the only threat to Alabama is Alabama. What I'm asking is this. If somebody was to come up to you and give you $1,000 and they were to say, you got to use that to bet on any team to win this division other than Alabama, who would it be? Now, if you've been listening to the JT Sports Podcast for over the last couple of months, you would know that I have been really high on Arkansas. And the reason for this is because, for one, you have KJ Jefferson coming back at quarterback. KJ Jefferson not only is one of the best quarterbacks in this conference, but he's one of the best dual-threat quarterbacks in college football. Other than Alabama and Mississippi State, the majority of teams in the West don't really know who their starting quarterback is going to be, and they don't really know how good of quarterback play they're going to be getting this season. And if you're going to have a chance at beating Alabama or being able to dethrone them, you got to have not only consistent quarterback play, but you have to have consistently elite quarterback play. And that's what KJ Jefferson can give you this season. Last year in 2021, a lot of people may not know this, but that was his first season starting as the full-time starter for the Razorbacks. And he was really good. So imagine how good he's going to be this year, going into spring, summer, and fall camp, having more time to develop. Plus, he's going to be taking snaps behind one of the best offensive lines in college football. And if you're going to be able to upset Alabama, you have to be able to handle yourself up front on the line of scrimmage. It doesn't matter how good your running backs are, how good of a group of wide receivers you have, if you can't block the big boys up front. Then you have a pretty good group of running backs, and Arkansas is going to be one of the best rushing football teams in college football this year, with the fact that they're off the line so good. You got a good stable of running backs, and you got to account KJ Jefferson's running ability into account as well. Now, the biggest knock on Arkansas is probably going to be their defense and their wide receiver position. Now, outside of Jaden Hazelwood, who is the transfer from Oklahoma, you don't have too much proven production there. You do have talent because Arkansas does have a couple of highly touted wide receivers on their roster. You just don't really know about them because they haven't really proven anything yet. So, on the defense side of things, you have Barry Odom as your defensive coordinator. Now, Arkansas's defense definitely should improve this year. You brought Drew Sanders in from the transfer portal. You should have a pretty good secondary. And let's not forget that Arkansas pushed Alabama to the wire last season. They came really close to being able to upset Alabama. So I think that Arkansas probably would be my pick. However, I do understand that there's going to be a lot of people who are probably going to say Texas A&M, simply for the fact that Texas A&M beat Alabama with Zach Calzada, and plus Alabama is the most talented team in this division, but behind them probably would be Texas A&M. Texas A&M has a really good defense, super athletic. There's going to be a lot of future NFL guys playing on this defense this season, especially their defensive line. Their defensive line is whew. And then their offensive line is pretty good. You have a really good group of wide receivers. Your running back position is going to be great as well. The only concern with Texas A&M is this. We don't know how good the quarterback play is going to be. Now, the quarterback competition is either going to come down to Haynes King or Max Johnson. Or either of those two quarterbacks good enough to beat Alabama? Because when Texas A&M pulled off that upset against Bama last year, Zach Calzada played out of his freaking mind. The dude balled out. So are you going to be able to get that kind of consistent quarterback play week in and week out? Because Jimbo Fisher doesn't really have a great track record at producing elite high-level quarterbacks. As a matter of fact, outside of Jameis Winston, who else has he had during his head coaching career who's really been a great college quarterback. Kellen Mond, I wouldn't consider him great, but I would say that he was pretty good. You see, if you're going to have a chance at winning this division, you got to be able to have legitimate quarterback play that is high level on a consistent basis. You can't have inconsistent quarterback play. You got to have elite quarterback play every week. Then you have LSU. I think LSU is the ultimate wild card because with this team, you don't really know what to expect. Now, a lot of people have said this about LSU. You have Brian Kelly, who comes in from Notre Dame, one of the best coaches in college football. Now, LSU does have a lot of talent. They hit the transfer portal really hard. However, you don't know how good the offensive line is going to be. LSU fans are going to say, the JT, the offensive line is going to be fine. We brought in some guys from the transfer portal. The offensive line also does have a couple of highly touted recruits. We're going to be fine at the offensive line. Okay, but how do you know that? You get what I'm saying? You don't really have any proven production there. And even Brian Kelly even said after the spring, they're still trying to figure things out the offensive line. They're still moving guys around. So even he doesn't really know how good the offensive line is going to be this season. However, you do have Keyshawn Boutte, who probably is the second best wide receiver in college football, or the third best, depending on who you ask. Then you also have a lot of good players behind him. You have a pretty good stable of running backs. The defense does have a lot of talent as well. So if LSU ends up hitting the gates running, and they end up being what Michigan State was in 2021, they definitely, most likely, will be in this conversation. Mississippi State. Mississippi State is really interesting because I also think they're probably on the lower end, but they do have a good amount of returning starters. Their defense is also going to be really good. We talk about how good Texas A&M's defensive line is going to be, how good the defensive line of Clemson is going to be. But Mississippi State's defensive line, I definitely think deserves to be in that conversation because they have some dudes on that defensive line. And they have some guys who are probably going to be some high first-round draft picks come the near future. So their defensive line is also amongst the best in college football. It may not be top 5, but it definitely is top 10. So their defensive line is going to be really good. Their defense definitely should take a step up in improvement. And you have Will Rogers coming back this season at quarterback, and he probably is one of the better quarterbacks in this division as well. So the thing about Mississippi State is this. The reason why I want to include them is because I think that Mike Leach's offense has kind of gotten a little bit too predictable. All you got to do is drop 8, and that's pretty much the recipe. So unless Mike Leach can kind of switch things up on offense, which I doubt, you think he would? You get what I'm saying? You think he would try to add some extra wrinkles there, but I don't know. He's kind of stubborn. I love Mike Leach. I think Mississippi State is going to be a good team, but I don't really think they have a legitimate shot of being able to push Alabama unless they can prove that they're capable of being able to switch things around on offense, kind of be a little bit more predictable. And they don't really need to change things up schematically, or they don't really need to change the kind of plays they call. Really, all they just need to do is just run the football more, be a little bit more balanced, because then if you can be a little bit more balanced, it brings a different element of unpredictability to your offense. It will really help you out. So I really think that the two teams that could compete and potentially win this division could be Arkansas or Texas A&M. Ole Miss, I think they're going to have a little bit of a down season. They lost a lot of talent. You look at Auburn. I think that Auburn could be better than what a lot of people are giving them credit for. They could potentially be the biggest sleeper team in the whole entire SEC because Auburn always plays the best when it seems as if everybody thinks they're not going to be good. But I don't really think they're going to be able to challenge for this division. So my two picks are Arkansas, Texas A&M, and LSU probably is the ultimate wild card. We don't really know what to expect, but Alabama is most likely going to win this division. They are the most talented team in college football. It's either them or Ohio State. And for a team to be able to beat Alabama, it's going to take luck, great quarterback play, good offensive line play, and good play on the defensive line as well. And you're also going to have to make sure that you're able to minimize turnovers. You're going to have to play mistake-free football, and you're also going to have to be able to cause some turnovers as well. So let me know who you guys think could potentially challenge Alabama in the SEC West, who you guys think is Alabama's biggest threat in the SEC West for this season. Thank you for listening to this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. Remember that every video that's uploaded on the channel is available in the audio format on every single podcasting platform. Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts from, the JT Sports Podcast is available. And I will see you guys with another episode shortly.